Good morning, everyone. My name is Kathy Espinoza, and thank you again for joining us for our second in a four-part series on bullying prevention. Today's topic is effective strategies in bullying prevention, and I will be your moderator. I work for Keenan and Associates, and I am the Assistant Vice President of Ergonomics and Safety. I am very happy to have and introduce you to Ms. Jane Riese from Clemson University. Jane is the National Training Director with the Olvea's Bullying Prevention Program. She has been a social worker and prevention educator since 1982. She is a nationally known author, speaker, trainer, group facilitator, and an advocate for a variety of prevention-related topics. In addition to bullying, she has a strong background in dialogue-based restorative justice, mediation, and sexual violence prevention programs. Jane, I'm going to go ahead and turn the program over to you. If anyone has any questions during Jane's session, please feel free to put them into the chat, and we will have a 10-minute section at the end where we can quiz her and get her advice. Jane?
Thank you very much, Kathy. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks to all of you for joining us today. I hope we can be of assistance to you with this very, very important topic. A few brief learning objectives for today. We're going to, of course, define bullying and discuss the importance of addressing bullying in schools. We're going to talk about the effects of bullying on all children, those who are bullied, those who do the bullying, and the bystanders who witness the bullying, as well as on the entire school climate. We're going to give 10 effective strategies for prevention, which we think you'll find very useful. We're going to talk about involving parents and the community in these efforts, and we'll then very briefly touch upon the Olvea's Bullying Prevention Program as one example of sound bullying prevention efforts. So let's start with that definition. It's very important to begin with a common understanding of what bullying is and what it isn't. This is Dr. Dan Olvea's definition of bullying, and that is bullying is when someone repeatedly and on purpose says or does mean or hurtful things to another person, and this person has a hard time defending themselves. So it has three common components, which we'll go over. But we feel it's very important when working with schools to be very careful to avoid using the terms bully and victim as much as possible when describing students. We often use this language in the research. However, it's important for you to note that we don't want to label kids in school. We do instead want to focus on their behavior, and we encourage that practice with all staff in schools. But bullying is abuse. It is a form of victimization and shares some characteristics, such as that repetition, the power imbalance, with other forms of victimization, such as domestic violence and child maltreatment. Bullying isn't a form of conflict, which rather implies that two parties are more or less on equal footing. And so responding to bullying as if it were conflict can be damaging, as it could send inappropriate messages to the students involved, and it could certainly re-victimize the child who was bullied. So why is this important? There are many reasons why it's critical to address school bullying. Perhaps the most important, of course, is for the students and their futures. Also, we know healthy school climates can improve achievement, which is important in every single school community. Third, we know that there are benefits in the community when students like school and have a variety of settings where they feel they belong, apart from only school. Fourth, risk management. The number of civil lawsuits brought by students and parents against schools clearly has grown, and the issue has constantly been that school personnel have failed to provide a safe learning environment for the students. And finally, it's just simply a wise financial investment. Research-supported bullying prevention programs could save the country between $1.7 million and $2.3 million by keeping an at-risk youth out of the justice system. So let's look at these first two and focus on those a little bit more, the students and the healthy school climate. bullying has serious effects, of course, and may impact a student's psychosocial functioning, their academics, and their physical health, both in the short and long term. So looking at these here, it can be related to lower self-esteem, higher depression, loneliness, anxiety. Students are more likely to report wanting to avoid school and have higher absenteeism rates. They report disliking school. They have received lower grades in some research. One study in particular showed that early peer exclusion can lead to a decrease in classroom participation, and then as a result, lowered academic achievement. That was one longitudinal study from K to 5. There's more thoughts, ideation regarding suicide, and more illness. And we know that the depression and low self-esteem can certainly carry on into adulthood. We're not only concerned about those who are being bullied, but we're very concerned about those who bully as well. Bullying can be part of a conduct disordered behavior pattern, and that pattern can continue into adulthood. One thing can lead to another. And I think this is probably what got me the most as I formerly worked with those juveniles caught up in the justice system, is that 60% of chronically identified students who bully would go on to have an arrest record in their 20s. So very important. This is like delinquency and prevention program, which is very important, I think, to all of us here. So we've got the students who are bullied, those who do the bullying, but who else? Most of the students in our schools are neither of these students. Most of those students are the bystanders. And it's very important to think about how the majority of our students may be impacted by this. Children who observe bullying going on around them may feel afraid, powerless about what's going on around them. They may feel guilty about not doing anything about it. And what really concerns me is the potential diminished empathy for victims of bullying over time, almost a sense of blaming a student who comes to school because they're choosing a poor choice of clothing, for instance. So that concerns me, and that's where we adults have to step in and make some changes. I love this interesting graphic. We call this the Ulvaeus Bullying Circle in our program. And really what this is about is examining how the peer group plays an important role in motivating and encouraging bullying in many situations. So as this continuum shows, students who bully often get various kinds of support. You see the A at the top is the student who bullies. Then you've got the followers and the supporters, those kids who may not start it, but they may jump in, join in. You've got some passive supporters who may not display open support, but they really are entertained and amused by all of this. You've got your E students at the bottom, many of those in your buildings, the disengaged onlookers. This is none of my business. I don't want to get involved. You also have many students in the schools you're connected with who are possible defenders. They don't like it. They know it's a social injustice going on right before them, but they really don't know what to do, and they fear getting involved could cause more problems or make things worse for the victimized student or for themselves. And then finally, you have the defender students who say, you know, I have to do something. The something that kids can do is on a continuum ranging from not joining in to going right over there to the A and B students and saying, hey, stop it. Or going up to the bullied student themselves later and saying, you know, I'm sorry that happened to you. I saw that. It's important to think about the group mechanisms in bullying because really bullying can be a group phenomenon. And we adults, we believe, are the ones who have to take charge to end it, as well as to support the students for knowing how to be good citizens in their buildings. So as I mentioned before, bullying can impact the entire school climate. It creates this climate where there is fear, where there is anticipated disrespect. This can interfere with the main point of our being there, and that is student learning. Students may feel uncomfortable, insecure. They may decide they don't like school so well. And they may feel that the adults really aren't in charge and don't have the ability to address the problems that they're seeing around them. So that's kind of a bit of an overview of the problem. So let's talk about some well-intended mistakes, I think, that are fairly common for education and educational systems and educators to make. And the first one would be a short-term solution, such as, I know, let's have an assembly. We'll bring in some cyberbullying experts from the police department, and we'll gather all the kids together, or for the younger ones, we'll bring in a magician who has an anti-bullying message, and we'll get them all together and we'll address it. Not a bad thing to do, but certainly not an answer. That may be a part of an answer in a larger school-wide approach. Second concerning approach might be to go for the hottest program every year. So year after year, for instance, this year we're going to do Brand X bullying prevention program. Next year we're going to do character education type of program. The following year we're going to do one that focuses on behavioral supports. So we know that that won't produce long-term change, and it can really lead to staff burnout. Many of these programs can dovetail nicely together, but to just try a program for a year and leave it to do something else is probably not going to be effective. Third is that we know that research shows that grouping bullying students together can lead to the modeling of more negative behavior. So that probably is not advised in a school setting. Fourth, we know from research too that students who bully have average or above average self-esteem. And so grouping those children together might even strengthen their confidence and give them more support. Zero tolerance. Just read a wonderful article that explains zero tolerance can mean student exclusion. There are many students who try on bullying behavior for size, and sometimes the threat of very, very serious punishment can discourage students and adults from reporting. Of course, semantics come into play here. Yes, we don't have tolerance for bullying, and we want to make that be clear. But zero tolerance policies are quite different, and those policies mean very harsh types of punishment from the first incident. And so what that can happen is a chilling effect on people's willingness to report bullying at all. And then finally, the last one, as much as I am a supporter of mediation, conflict resolution, and communication skills training for all students, I love all that, it really is not recommended in cases of bullying because bullying isn't conflict. Because of the power differential, the victimized student could really be at greater risk for further victimization. So let's walk through some top 10 strategies of effective bullying prevention. And we'll be glad then to entertain some questions. The first strategy is to clearly focus on the social environment of the entire school, the school climate. As one colleague once said to me early in my career, good bullying prevention programs are not something else on a teacher's plate. They are the plate. So we're talking about creating feelings of connection, of caring in the air at school. We're talking about the principal who knows the students' names, adults of all kinds who are these students' mentors. We're looking for a shift in culture, a change in the existing social norms at school, where it becomes uncool to bully and cool to help students who are being bullied. A place where all staff really do notice and respond when bullying happens. And this really requires a lot of work. It requires a comprehensive school-wide effort involving all adults and students in the entire school community. So it's not a curriculum that can be piloted in specific grades. 85% of your students are neither bullying others or being victimized. So we really want to focus on an entire school culture that involves bystanders and their responses too. It's very important. A second strategy would be to find out what is going on at your own building. Assess bullying at your school. So therefore, administer an anonymous survey to students to assess the nature of the bullying that's going on, the prevalence, how often, and the locations in your buildings where bullying is occurring. Those types of very specific findings can really motivate adults to take action, particularly when adults are saying, you know, I really don't see bullying going on. This kind of data can help the school tailor the prevention strategies to the particular needs of the school. Data can also be a very important baseline from which administrators and educators can measure their progress as they do bullying prevention work. We wanted you to see an example of a survey. Again, my orientation being with this model. It's about a 40-question survey, paper, pencil, scannable, or online. And we have in the data that I'll show you, just to give you an idea of some of the kinds of results folks receive, we have about 500,000 data points in this graphic that you see here, depicting 3rd grade up to 12th grade. You see the girls in pink and the boys in blue. This shows you that what national trends are, just for your own information, that younger students are much more likely than older students to say that they have been bullied in self-reports. We see a very steady decrease from grades 3 to 12 in girls reports that they have been bullied, and we see a steady decrease for boys as well until about 11th and 12th grade, where the rates of bullying, being bullied rather, sort of level out. In the younger grades, girls appear very slightly more likely than boys to be bullied, but by middle school this pattern changes and boys are slightly more likely to be bullied. So these are national trends. They may or may not be similar to your own schools in being bullied, and our definition is that means being bullied 2 to 3 times a month or more, rather than just once or once in a great while. Now, to flip into data that reflects self-reports of bullying others, a different grade pattern emerges when students are asked if they have done the bullying themselves. For girls, the bullying behavior appears to peak in around the 8th grade and then decreases steadily through 12th. But for boys, we see something different. We see that bullying behavior appears to level off around 8th grade and remain high in through high school. Very different trends. In data, national data that describes the types of bullying, that students report, of course, being bullied in a variety of different ways. And again, 2 to 3 times a month or more often. Some forms of bullying tend to happen together. For instance, students who report being physically bullied are also likely to say they had property taken and were threatened, for instance. Going across the bottom, just so that we can define these, it's verbal, exclusion, physical, rumors, property, threats, racial bullying, sexual bullying, cyberbullying, and other types. Most common form of bullying, as you can clearly see, is verbal, both for boys and girls. And also very common is rumor spreading and social exclusion as well. The largest gender difference you can see is for physical bullying, with boys experiencing nearly twice as much physical bullying as girls. Boys are also somewhat more likely to have property taken or damaged, to be threatened or forced to do things they didn't want to do, and to be bullied about race or color. So just a little background and some national data. That comes through assessing. The point is, national data is all well and good and it's all very interesting, but if you can get your own data, it certainly makes a big difference in making decisions and good planning, sound implementation strategies. A third strategy for success would be to garner staff and parent support in your efforts. Do some work up front to raise awareness and generate some interest so that when the time comes, the people that you work with feel that they own part of this decision. It's always great when you put a dynamic leader in the building in charge of the efforts, such as a very interested, passionate school counselor or administrator, a teacher who's very interested in this topic. But bullying prevention cannot be the sole responsibility of one person, of course. In terms of engaging staff, getting staff involved, we want them to receive overviews, definitions of the issue. We want them to have a chance to discuss existing problems at their buildings. And we want decision makers to gather input about student needs and the staff commitment to the issues. So buy-in is going to be a real important piece in success here. In terms of the parents themselves, you know, just a note about parent inclusion in any kinds of school processes and activities. Parental involvement can lead to a variety of wonderful things: higher academic achievement of their students, greater student well-being, better attendance, positive behaviors and attitudes, including 5, a readiness to do homework, which is good, increase in student time spent with parents, better grades, higher educational aspirations, and higher parent satisfaction with teachers in the building. So we really have to partner with our parents on all of this. Parent education is important. We need them to know why the school is concerned about bullying. We want to offer parents tips on what they should do if their child is being bullied, bullying others, or is witnessing it. We want parents to have a very low threshold in contacting the school, in reporting problems or concerns that they have, and we want to let them know how they can access us. We really need to be welcoming to our parents. A fourth strategy for success is to form a group at the school to coordinate these efforts. And you notice we always are referring to prevention and intervention activities because both are needed. We want to be able to get in there and stop problems, but we really want to prevent them to begin with. This group can be referred to in any number of ways. We happen to call this the Bullying Prevention Coordinating Committee. And one of these committees or teams is needed at each school building that's going to implement a school-level model, not just one team for the entire district. On this committee would be most definitely the principal, teachers from each grade level represented in the school, a parent or two, a school resource officer or nurse, for instance, other champions at your school. You know who they are. You know, they're the ones that genuinely are passionate about the issue. They adore children. They've got that spark and energy. They know how to motivate others. You probably can picture some faces of folks that you work with, some of you yourselves who have selected this web session today. A student advisory group can also be formed to give valuable feedback and suggestions to the adults in the building, particularly at the middle and the high school level. Students get very actively involved in this. But this coordinating committee group can really be the engine, and they will also help to motivate, train, support in an ongoing way the rest of the staff in the building on this issue. So back to what I said, it's great to have your leader coordinator, somebody who's in charge, but we need that group to be an engine and support the coordinator in the building. A fifth strategy would be to train everyone, all staff members, not just the core committee or the classroom teachers. And by everyone, I mean bus drivers, custodians, cafeteria staff, front office workers, playground aides. Give them the opportunity to practice their new skills so they feel comfortable addressing problems. So staff have the actual words to say when they see bullying, and so that all are willing to act, they're trained to act, and they feel empowered to act on the spot when they see bullying incidences, feeling confident that they have the authority and the know-how to do that. We really need everybody working together so that a student knows, oh, I can't do this in the cafeteria, I can't do this in the hallway, not in the classroom, not even in the art class, not in front office. So there really is a consistency of message. And then it's always best practice, we would say, to do some refresher training as needed. An on-the-spot intervention, for instance, on bullying that you see with your own eyes is a little 5-step suggested process, and we would have staff, go over that for 5 minutes at the beginning of each year once they were fully trained. Make sure you get your new staff members trained too when new staff come into the building. Very important, so they can get on board. A 6th effective bullying prevention strategy would be to establish and enforce school rules or guidelines and, of course, very important, policies regarding bullying and bullying prevention. Although school behavior codes may already prohibit bullying, many do not spell out their expectations or define that term. Now, boy, the climate has changed dramatically since I started in this work in 1999, when there were 0 state laws to address bullying. 49 of our 50 states have laws requiring schools to address bullying in some way, shape, or form. They're varied greatly across the nation. So schools may have behavior codes that address this, but we're suggesting that it be spelled out. We also want to make it clear the expectation that students be appropriate and productive citizens, not passive bystanders when they know that bullying is going on. An example of some school rules against bullying are these. We will not bully others. We will try to help students who are bullied. We will include students who are left out. And when we know somebody's being bullied, we'll tell an adult at school and an adult at home. Note that only the first of these rules addresses children who bully. 3 of the 4 rules focus on the behavior of the bystanders. That's because it's important that all children understand the school's specific expectations regarding their behavior, and students won't bully, but they will also take action to help students who are bullied, even if it's themselves. School rules would need to be developed prior to the launch of the program, posted through the school, and discussed in detail with the students. A 7th effective strategy would be to increase supervision in what we might refer to as hotspots for bullying. More pairs of eyes can make a dramatic difference. Think about your own buildings or the buildings that you're associated with where there may be an increased amount of bullying in those areas. Of course, your students will tell you this if you do an assessment. They're going to let you know where these things are. Again, just to take a little peek at what students across the U.S. have said, grades 3 to 12, where bullying is occurring. And you can see these figures here for both girls and boys. Playgrounds and athletic fields, hallways and stairwells, lunchrooms. It's kind of disturbing. In class is up there, as well as in class with no teacher, which can be relatively concerning. School buses can be quite problematic as well. But this gives you an example, and again, it's most important to find out where the students in your own individual buildings say that bullying is happening. An 8th strategy is to intervene consistently and appropriately in bullying incidents. This has been referred to before when we talked about training. The message has to be clear, and it needs to come from everyone. All staff should intervene effectively on the spot as they observe bullying, and other staff should be able to hold sensitive follow-up meetings individually, that is one-on-one, with students who are bullied, and individually with students who are bullying others. Those meetings should be separate, and kids should not be brought face-to-face to, quote, work it out, as we mentioned before. And, of course, staff need to know about when and how to actively and sensitively involve the parents when there are individual situations involving bullying. We'll touch on that just a little bit more. A 9th overall strategy, of course, is back to the children, focusing some classroom time on bullying prevention and intervention. Truly, in my opinion, this is really one of the key elements of a successful program. Once a week, at least, at the elementary and middle school level, once every other week or so at the high school. Teachers get students together, get them in a circle, put their books aside as a way to talk about any number of things. There's a chance for the students and the teacher to get to know one another better, to build community. This may be one of the most important components that lends itself to that climate shift that we have mentioned earlier. It doesn't have to take that long. It can save countless hours over the course of a school year, usually taken up perhaps putting out small fires, since students know that they do have a regular time when they have a voice and they can practice working together. It's also great in terms of students if teachers have an opportunity to incorporate anti-bullying and pro-social types of messages across the curriculum, social studies, English, current events, and there's so much good literature out there, of course. And then the last of these 10 strategies is to hang in there. You know, once you commit to a school-wide comprehensive bullying prevention model, it's really meant to be there, to stay woven into the fabric of the school. And this means that your committee, your engine, keeps meeting monthly, that you work to be sure that new staff get training, that you offer booster training if there are concerns or a dip in energy, that you avoid that program du jour mentality where, oh, well, we're kind of, you know, getting busy, too busy to take a look at this. We know, speaking of busyness, that most school staff barely have time to take a 3-minute break during the day, and I'm quite serious about that. So when trying to champion a new effort in your schools, you may be met with that familiar old frustration from teachers and others resisting and making that good argument. You know, there's simply not enough time. We've got to meet state standards. We've got to focus on academics. I'm a math teacher. I'm not a counselor. Efforts to change school culture are not easy, and they take time. But they won't work unless nearly everybody is on board. So I think most of us would agree that we can't expect high academic achievement from students who are spending their day within a climate of abuse. So many administrators are simply saying we are making the time to prevent bullying. Naturally, this kind of culture change doesn't happen overnight. So when we sign up for this work, we're looking at 3 years. We're looking at 3 to 5 years. When you look at the leadership change experts like a Michael Folan, for instance, these things take years. But, you know, the world does change. I'm dating myself here, but I remember having a car without seatbelts in it when I was a little girl. We didn't recycle. I never dreamed of being attached to my cell phone. So change really can happen over time. It just takes time and commitment. So there are some top 10 practices, and I wanted to just give you an example of a little bit more information about our best practices program, the Obeas model. We've got components to our model, with parents being central to each of these components. It's a comprehensive school-wide program for students all the way from elementary to high school. And there are 4 intervention levels: the school level, which involves everybody; the classroom level, of course, mainly with the teacher and the students; individual, being those actual situations of bullying that must be addressed; and then finally pulling the community into this, where your organization really plays a lead role. Let's just glance at them very briefly one by one. This is a slide with all the school level components on it, and I'll run over those briefly. Establishing the coordinating committee that I mentioned, your leadership team. 2 is getting that committee trained. They would be trained for 2 days, and having that committee train all staff for 1 day. 3rd would be taking the survey for the students. 4th would be holding intermittent staff discussion groups, small groups of staff, for instance, grade level meetings, where staff would have an opportunity to talk about implementation efforts and interventions and so forth. 5th would be introducing school rules about bullying, which we showed you earlier. 6th would be checking out the supervision in the building. Where do we need to change things based on the hot spots in our school? A school kickoff event could launch the program. That may be your assembly that I mentioned earlier, and of course the engagement of parents. So this includes everybody at the school level. The classroom level component should have involve rules being posted and consistently enforced in the classroom, using not just negative consequences, but multitudes of positive consequences. This program is very much of the thinking that we want to have multiple positive reinforcements and encouragements offered to students of all ages at every grade level. And of course, using the negative consequences only when needed. Those all need to be reinforced with consistency. Regular class meetings, I mentioned those, circling students up as a time to get them together to have an opportunity to build community and talk about things, not just bullying, but things that are important to them. And finally, it's great if class level parent meetings can occur. Very challenging, especially at the upper grades, but class level parent meetings can be very effective as well to get your parents on board as partners before there are problems to address with them in their individual students. The individual level components, we've been talking about those. Supervision, of course, is designed to prevent the problems to begin with. But the next two bullets encompass the heart of this, which is training staff to do on-the-spot interventions, and also having staff holding one-on-one individual follow-up meetings with students who are involved in the bullying, each of them separately. And then, of course, we want plans to try to do whatever is needed to prevent problems in the future. And then finally, the community level component involving community members on the BPCC would be an example of doing this, and developing partnerships so that folks in the community can support your efforts and help to get the anti-bullying message out there into the community. We know that bullying certainly doesn't stop at the school steps. Bullying certainly is in the community at large. So what we hope that you'll take away from all of this is that bullying can be reduced. It requires everybody's effort in a school community as well as the community at large support, and it definitely takes a commitment for the long term. If you would like to get some more information about the Olweus Bullying Prevention Program, training, materials, so forth, you can go to the website you see on your screen. There's a screenshot of that. There's also a phone number where you can reach someone in the Hazelden Sales Department. You're also certainly welcome to contact me at Clemson University. I'm at Riese, J-R-I-E-S-E, at clemson.edu. And I could also be happy to have you have my phone number, which is 717-870-7992. Bobby Christensen is your Hazelden sales representative at the number on the screen, and many of you may have met Bobby already. He'd be a great resource to assist you with any of the questions you have about the program materials and so forth. So we're a team, we work closely together, and we'll all be glad to support any questions that you may have along the way. And speaking of which, I'm going to turn it back to Kathy.
Thank you, Jane. That was very enlightening information you've provided for us this morning. I do want to take a moment to remind our clients that we have a PNC bridge that has a brand new tab called the School Safety Center. And on this School Safety Center, you'll notice on the right-hand side, we have online training modules from our Keenan Safe Schools, and these can help train your staff when times are very tight like this. They can be delivered in 5-minute increments on conflict resolution, bullying, and we've got a new program on workplace bullying, unfortunately. Over on the left-hand side of our School Safety Center, we have got a variety of topics on bullying, cyberbullying, classroom curriculum, and model programs, one of which is our Olweus Speakers program that we talked a little bit about this morning. You may notice that we have sample policies for bullying prevention that I have posted on this left-hand side that were just released from the California Department of Education. So there's a wide variety of information on there, so please take a minute and check that out. It's about now that we would go to question and answers. So we've got just a few questions for you this morning, Jane.
Okay,
in California, our mantra is no budget, no time, no money, and one of the things that they have discontinued are counselors. We've had a reduction in the number of counselors at the schools, elementary, middle, and high schools. So the screen for not having any time for anybody to pull something together except working with what's required to pass these standardized testing. Do you have any kind of magic bullets, best practices? You mentioned having a committee, but anything else that you've seen across the nation where school districts did it very well?
Well, no, I don't. I wish I did. You know, schools, and I mentioned this to Kathy earlier, that the laws vary so broadly from state to state in terms of what your requirements are, and there are some really good resources in California for you to tap. I mean, I know of some. I don't know if those folks would have answers to your question. Really, it is a complex time. I hear it not just in the state of California. There's definitely limited time. Budgets are cut right and left. I'm so sorry to hear about the school counselor situation. I live in Pennsylvania, and one school was going to lose its art and phys ed programs this year. So you're not alone, but I don't have a magic answer for this. You know, we think that our legislators who enact requirements for us have to help us see through how we're going to address the requirements. So I don't have the magic. I do think that you probably want to start with the top 10 that I shared with you today. Get together with a team of people who are creative, get representation from across your school building. You certainly need to have your leadership. Maybe you are in leadership at the district level. You need superintendent support. You need director of pupil services support and the like to help strategize about what you can do. There are of course, interesting, I would say that in the Violence Prevention Works web slide that we had up a moment ago, you'll see there on the left side of the screen that all the blue menu. There's one called Funding, and I would definitely suggest that you sign up to get the Funding Toolkit and Funding e-alerts from Violence Prevention Works, where you can learn about some opportunities for funding in your state. Also stay connected, I would say, with your county offices of mental health, your county offices of health. We've been out in California. Now there will be, I guess, 3 times when we've managed to come out to California through some funding that was developed at the county level. Behavioral health funding, et cetera. So I know it's difficult, and I wish you the very best. Hopefully you and others can talk offline about some good strategies you could take, but seeking funding may be one answer.
Thank you. We do have one other question. Someone said that you mentioned the 5-point intervention process that a staff can use with their students. Can you expand on that or outline that?
The 5 points, really, this is a 30 to 60 second type of intervention that we're talking about, that when people come upon a bullying incident and they know that it's bullying, this is not a big involved situation where they have to do an investigation, of course, which is all required as well. But this is a situation when somebody sees bullying going on and needs to stop it. They would do what we would call an on-the-spot intervention. They would stop the bullying. They would address the bullied student briefly. They would, by supporting them, they would name the bullying behavior that they witnessed and say that it's not acceptable and refer to the school policies against it. They would engage the bystanders in some way or another. If the bystanders were being helpful, they would encourage them and support them. Thanks for your support in this situation. If they're not being helpful, they would address the bystanders by saying, you know, your behavior is participating to the problem that's happening here. And then they would impose consequences. If they're in a position to oppose consequences, if they're not, they will inform the student that consequences will be imposed. Then, after they do that little 60-second, if that, 30 to 60-second intervention, we would suggest that they are involved in communicating with the other adults in their building about what they witnessed. This can be complex if they don't know the names of the students. There may be more investigation needed, of course, and then likely there could be the second piece of our individual interventions, which is a follow-up conversation, which may be more of a 5-minute sit-down in private with each of the students one-on-one.
Excellent. Well, that's about all the questions we have right now. I just want to take this opportunity to thank you, Jane, for joining us this morning. Some of you have asked if the session has been recorded, and yes, I want to remind everyone that we will have a PDF handout of the slides presented today, and I did manage to remember to record it, so that will be posted on keenan.com/webinars. So thank you for joining us this morning, Jane. I really appreciate all your expertise and advice.
Well, it was a pleasure to be here, Kathy. Thank you so much for inviting me.
All right. Thank you all, and have a great day.